Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the session. The title of today's talk is While Grace is a Reality, Effort is a Necessity. Our speaker today is Dr. Ramesh Bijlani, who is a prolific writer and an inspirational speaker. He loves to use the gift of communication that he has received from the divine for dispensing small doses of love and wisdom from the inexhaustible pharmacy of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Once a professor at AIMS New Delhi, Dr. Bijlani is now a spiritual seeker at Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. Dr. Bijlani, sir, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to a lovely session with you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Arunima. I think the view, the speaker view, but still, at least in my screen, it's not showing. Anyway. So thank you, Arunima, for the introduction. It doesn't matter how the image is showing, but at least the image is showing and the voice is being heard. Let me give a little introduction to this talk. The title is, in fact, a bit misleading. It may be interpreted that I'll just talk about the relationship between personal effort and divine grace. That, of course, is something which is standard accepted knowledge in spirituality, that whatever effort we put in doesn't generally amount to much. In fact, the progress that we make is more because of divine grace. Out of God's love for us, God gives us much more than we deserve on the basis of our personal effort, and that is what divine grace is. But the background to this particular talk, today's talk, is that as the year started changing from 2024 to 25, I came across a deluge of videos making some very uh, serious and fierce and scary predictions about the next few years, starting this year 2025. And although I mean they also emphasize that all this destruction and devastation that they're talking about is in the larger interest, because it will eventually lead to a much better world and so on. But all the same, the events that have been predicted are on one hand scary. On the other hand, anybody would feel that we are completely helpless in doing anything about them. And if the world is going to more or less end, or if not the world is ending, but at least this era, which we call kaliyug, is ending and satyug is coming, it's coming because of the divine interventions which are going to follow. On one hand, we would feel that there is nothing that I can do about such events. Secondly, I need not even try to prevent them, because, in fact, they are also an expression of divine grace, because God is doing it because He wants a better world. And one can sort of relate to it because we have played enough mischief with the world to deserve that sort of consequences, and only probably a major divine intervention can do it. But all the same, and we can even rejoice that a better world is coming. But all the same, uh, one thing which it can do is that since the events are beyond my control and the world is going to become better anyway, irrespective of what I do, then why need I do anything at all? I can just sit and relax. Now, if something like that happens to a person my age, it may not matter much. But if it happens to young people, it would mean that they would become idle and do as little as possible just to survive, or maybe eat, drink, and be merry. So, take that sort of an attitude, a happy go lucky attitude. No personal effort needs to be put towards spiritual progress, or for that matter, even worldly success, because the world is coming to an end very soon anyway. And a better world is coming. Just be happy about that. So, that's why I thought that it may be important to bring out that irrespective of what is going to happen, irrespective of what the future holds for us, we need to put in effort. The effort should still continue. One might still say that, maybe this deluge of videos that I saw maybe because of the algorithms that are built into YouTube. Because if I find one like that, they are likely to take me towards other videos which are along the same lines. But then, all the same, many of them came from rather authoritative sources. And then, when I went into uh, some of the passages which talk about a better world in Savitri, I found that once again, there are hints of this type of devastation preceding the creation of a new world. Aurobindo and the mother's vision is extremely bright about the future. They are very optimistic, and they have visualized that the next leap in evolution is round the corner. As a result, human nature would change. The typical human nature would change. The average human nature would change perceptibly. And as a result of that, instead of being ego driven, the typical human being will be love driven. And with this change of nature, we'll get a better world. Because when the number of such individuals who are much, much better than the average individual today, when their number increases beyond a certain point, when a certain critical threshold has been crossed, then it is these people, these human beings, whom we sometimes find difficult to visualize these days, who are more like our saints and sages, when these are the people who will be in sufficient numbers, they will dominate the affairs of the earth. And that is how the world will become a better place to live in. And in fact, that they have said will be the real and ultimate solution to all the problems of human existence, such as inequality, injustice, cruelty, misery, and suffering. So, all these problems of human existence, which we take for granted, that the world is meant to be like that, what can we do about it? We have to accept the world as it is. Now, this acceptance need not be permanent. A change is going to come, and it is pretty close round the corner. But then, the process for this new world, we have always thought in terms of a slow process, that slowly the typical human nature would change. Each one of us can contribute to it. When a sufficiently large number contributes, then it will be accelerated. So we can accelerate the process of natural evolution. But then all this is a rather slow and steady process rather than a sudden change. So here there was a hint in these videos predicting the future for the next few years that the process may be far more dramatic and spectacular and may involve devastation on a scale that no, it's not beyond our imagination. The divine can do all that. We have had some glimpses of it, in fact, in the recent past. But then it is, if anything, those type of events are going to increase, and that is what will change the world. So, and sometimes we feel, well, maybe that is the only way, because the degree of negativity that exists in the world today, one sometimes feels that that perhaps may be the only way, and that is why the divine is going to resort to that sort of measures for improving the world. So, with this introduction, let me now share the screen. Arunima, I have myself disappeared from my this thing screen, but uh, can you see me on the screen by the next to the slide?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
and I'll fix that for you too. I'll try to that do
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. Doesn't matter. So, as I was saying, the mother and Sri Aurobindo have been pioneers in visualizing a much better world in the near future. And in fact, their entire approach to spirituality has been collectivistic in nature. And that is, uh, it is not for one individual, it is for all of us together. And it is all of us together who can uh, accelerate the process of evolution. It will happen anyway as a result of the, in the natural course, as a result of evolution, which has been taking place for such a long time. So if the trend in the evolution is any indication so far, further evolution of human beings is a certainty. But then what will do it is something which uh, we have always visualized as a slow process as a result of natural evolution, and then it may be accelerated a bit by individual effort on the parts of the spiritual seekers. But then, if you look at uh, these lines, which give an idea of the future that is coming. Now, this is from Savitri in a passage that gives Sri Aurobindo's personal experiences. In fact, they've been in Savitri, they're called Ashwapati's experiences, but we all know that Ashwapati's experiences are nothing but Sri Aurobindo's own spiritual experiences. And this is what he says. He is visualizing a new set of children, a new type of children coming, because after all, who will usher in this new world? It will be different type of people, and these different type of people will be born different. So here he's talking about the children that he's visualizing. I saw them, that is the children, cross the twilight of an age. Now, what is twilight? Twilight is the uh, period uh, just after sunset, before it gets very dark. So, if you visualize this devastation to be a type of time when just before that there is a sunset, and darkness of the devastation and destruction is going to follow this, that is the time when the children of the special type who will usher in this new world. Special type means that they'll be born with a higher level of consciousness. So as they grow up, they will have different aims and aspirations compared to the typical man who has primarily so far been driven by the physical needs and emotional satisfaction. So they'll be different type. They'll have higher goals and aspirations. And these are the children whom he has visualized and called them the sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. That is, they are the children who will be born at the twilight in terms of the larger, the age, not in terms of individual day of 24 hours, but in terms of the age, the era itself can have a sunset and darkness would follow. But then before that darkness comes, the sun-eyed children would arrive and they will take us through this darkness to a marvelous dawn. And how can they do it? Naturally, by changing the way things are, and therefore they will be courageous enough to break the old barriers. So they'll be the massive barrier breakers of the world, break all those conventions as well as all those evil practices which we have taken for granted in this world. They'll break all these barriers because they are the messengers of the incommunicable. Incommunicable is the divine, because we may be able to talk a lot about the divine, but the entirety of the infinite is impossible to express in finite words. So, in that sense, the divine cannot be communicated to anybody in human language. So, the messengers of the incommunicable. So, they are bringing the message from the divine that the world now needs to change, and they have been charged with this responsibility to change the world. They have been equipped with a consciousness through which they can change the world, and these are the children who will change the world. But then, just a few lines before this, what does Sri Aurobindo say? He says that abandoning the tardy limp of the hours. Just a few lines before, he says, when these children come, what are the types of events that we'll see? Why he has called it the twilight, that is, darkness is coming. Abandoning the tardy limp of the hours. That is, normally the natural things have been moving at a rather slow and tardy pace. Those ways, nature will abandon those ways. Nature will now be different. It will not be, it will not move slowly. Overpassed were the leaden formulas of the mind. So far, we have our limited and limiting mind has had some formulas about how things happen. They'll be all overpassed. They'll be all left behind. They'll be all forgotten. They will have no meaning. They'll become meaningless. Overpowered the obstacle of mortal space. That is, this world, which is a place full of mortality, characterized by mortality. Anyone born here dies. So it offers some obstacles. They'll be all over obstacles to further change in the world. So those obstacles will be all abolished. They'll be overpowered. Something far more powerful will remove all these obstacles. And the result would be that the future will be able to unfold itself. And Sri Aurobindo saw that unfolding image showed the things to come. So, what are the things to come? He could see how it will happen by something which will be far more dramatic, very swift. There'll be no tardy limbs anymore, and there'll be no fixed formulae anymore. There'll be no obstacles to that change. The change will unfold as a result of this quickening of the pace and the removal of all the obstacles and the uh, complete irrelevance of all the formulae that we have respected so far. And when that happens, these children will arrive and the world will change. So this comes just a few lines before that. And then Sri Aurobindo goes on along in the same vein, a giant dance of Shiva toward the past. So he could now see what is it that is unfolding. What was that unfolding image? A giant dance of Shiva. Now, when Shiva dances, he is the form of Rudra and destroys. A giant dance of Shiva toward the past. There was a thunder as of worlds that fall. A massive thunder, which gives us a sort of, which leads to a feeling that now the world is now falling, world is coming to an end. Earth was overrun with fire and the roar of death, clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made. So now the divine is clamoring to slay a world his hunger had made, which means the divine wanted to make this world. The divine had made this world, but then what he had made, now he is very eager to slay it, to kill it, to destroy it. Now, here comes another passage much later in Savitri. This is page 343, book 3, canto 4, where Sri Aurobindo is talking about his personal experiences. Now, this is page 700, much later, almost towards the end of Savitri. And the context is that now uh, Savitri uh, has got Satyavan back, but then the divine she's having a dialogue with the divine. And finally, the divine has conceded and told her that you have passed all the tests. You are my agent, my messenger in the world who will change the world. And these are some of the words that the divine speaks to Savitri. So Savitri is here on earth. Her material is the present human race. And the divine is telling her how she will do what she has to do in the world. The pains of hell shall be to thee my kiss. So, which means that it will not be a painless process. The type of pains that we normally associate with hell, they will be the kiss of the divine to Savitri, who is changing the world. The flowers of heaven persuade thee with my touch. So, on one hand, the pains of hell will be a kiss. On the other hand, the flowers of heaven will be the motivation that will persuade you with my touch. And what will be the expression of this divine intervention? My fiercest masks shall my attractions bring. So the human being will be attracted to me when I exhibit, when I demonstrate, when I manifest in the form of my fiercest masks. So it is these fierce masks of devastation and destruction of which I find the touch here also. That Savitri is being already told about the type of methods that the divine would use while she is the instrument. Music shall find thee in the voice of swords. What type of music will be playing then? Voice of swords, which means there could be many wars, armed conflicts. Beauty pursue thee through the core of flame, fire. So it is through the core of flame that beauty will pursue thee, which means eventually it is beauty that is going to emerge, but then the route to that beauty will lie through flames of fire. So you can see at two different places, Sri Aurobindo has given a hint in Savitri about how the world will change. It will change by nature putting on its fiercest masks and by a thunder as if the world is going to fall, with fire, with a roar of death. And the aim of all this is to slay the world, to destroy. Now, here comes another source, a scripture or Purana. Puranas, are also our scriptures, Bhavishya Malika Purana. And the this particular uh, text was written by Mahapurusha Achyutananda Das, who was born in 1510 in Odisha. He was a saint, scholar, poet, philosopher, seer, writer, polymath, a social and religious reformer. This is how the Wikipedia describes him. So he lived in the 16th century and he wrote this in the 16th century in the Odia language. But then his work was based on a much older book from the 12th century, and the author of which is not exactly known, but it is believed that he was one of the five friends called Panchasakha. So one may assume that this 12th century work was written in the Sanskrit language. It was translated, it was written in Odia and maybe modified because it was only based on it in the 16th century by Mahapurush Achyutananda Das. And then, very recently in 2023, this 16th century Odia book has been translated into Hindi by Pandit Shri Kashinath Mishra. So you can see that the version that we now have available in Hindi has gone through two translations, perhaps from Sanskrit to Odia, and then from Odia to Hindi. But then, in spite of it, some basic facts are available, and probably that has not changed much in spite of these translations. And what is the prediction? By 2032, every major religion, belief system, and practice will combine into the Satya Sanatana Dharma, bringing forth a better future for all people. So 2032 is not far away. And this is in keeping with Aurobindo's vision that the religions will disappear, religions will give way to spirituality. And Sanatana Dharma is essentially spirituality. It does not have any essential uh, rituals, ceremonies. It does not have a fixed ethical code. The highest ethical sort of the compass or the indicator of what is right and wrong resides in the Sanatana Dharma within you. As Sri Aurobindo said, the highest scripture in Sanatana Dharma is within the person, within the individual, which is something unique to this religious tradition. And that will pave the way for a better world. Are the religions really disappearing? Are they giving way to spirituality? To some extent, yes, we have evidence of it, particularly in the Western world, where young people typically these days say that they do not have any belief in an organized religion. They don't have any allegiance to any organized religion, but they believe in a higher power. That's exactly what spirituality is about. And these are the young people who are called nuns, NONES nuns, which means they do not have any allegiance to any organized religion, but they are spiritual. So it
Sorry.
is already happening. And 2032 is not far away. These years may not be exact, but this gives an idea of how quickly all these things could happen. And this Bhavishya Malika Purana has three parts. Again, this is from Wikipedia, the source is given here, the reference, that three parts are Kaliyug ka Ant, end of Kali Yuga, end of the dark ages, end of this age of evil. And the next is Mahavinash, great destruction. So the end of this age of evil will be through great destruction. And what will happen is satyug ka Agaman, the coming of new age, a new age of virtue, a new age of goodness, a new age full of love. That will come, but the route to it lies through great destruction. And what are the types of destruction that have been talked about in this Bhavishya Malika Puran? World War III, which will last 6 years, 6 months. We are pretty close to it now. That's another prediction from that book. And India will be deeply involved in this war. I'll not go into further details. India will emerge victorious in the sense that the Sanatana Dharma will be the basis of the satyug. So India will provide that wisdom, but then India will be deeply involved in this war, which is likely to last more than 6 years. And then there will be massive interventions from the divine. A meteorite will hit the Bay of Bengal, and there'll be catastrophic events on Earth. Following that hit, there'll be a massive tsunami, and there'll be a severe impact on the northern hemisphere of the world. Uh, and if we see, much of the countries are actually in the northern hemisphere, which means that those in the southern hemisphere may be relatively spared. And which are those places? Africa, Australia, New Zealand, South America. These are the much of the rest of the world is in the northern hemisphere, and there'll be massive power cuts. And of course, probably to not visualize, then the internet will break down. Now here comes another book, a recent one, The Laws of the Spirit World by Khurshid Bhavnagri. Now, this book, and try to give as briefly as possible the background of this, uh, was written by Khurshid Bhavnagri, whose husband lost two sons, young sons, in a road accident. Both of them died on the same day in the same road accident. And they're the only two children they had. And therefore, naturally, the parents were devastated. And then, after being put in touch with these uh, children through a medium, they developed the a sort of a communication with these children, which went beyond that session, which was through the medium. They could directly communicate with the children. And then what one of the children did was to tell the mother, Khurshid Bhavnagri, the type of laws and the type of situation and the type of uh, conditions that exist in those other worlds. Uh, there being 9 realms, uh, which vary, from heaven to hell and a lot in between. And then what are the laws that govern? What is the relationship with the earth? What happens after we die? Which world we go, and so on and so forth. So those are the types of things. And what this lady Khurshid Bhavnagari did was to go on writing all this through a process which is called automatic writing, which means you are not actually creating the work, you are just quickly scribbling what is being told to you. And this process is a well-known process, in this spiritual world, that you can, in spiritual terms, that one can act as a scribe for something which is coming from high up. In fact, all the mantras have been created like that by the rishis. So this is how this book was created, and seems to be reasonably credible. And what it's talking about is a change in the axis of the Earth. In fact, many of the predictions are based on some geomagnetic phenomena, which I don't understand, but all the same, there seems to be something in common, and it is not impossible for these geomagnetic changes to bring about major changes on Earth. In fact, one uh, example on a much lower scale, so a much milder scale, is the way the Earth as well as the human body is affected by the lunar cycle. The moon has a cycle, again, waxing and waning cycle, and that does affect us. So, a greater geomagnetic changes, which occur only once in a while, once in a few centuries, once in a few millennia, those are the types of changes which are being anticipated now, and they could influence the earth in a major way. But then the book also talks about the increase in the negativity in the world. That is, the human behavior having undergone a change for the worse. It is probably at its lowest in history. So, negativity in the human race is now at an unprecedented level. But then it also gives the hope that better times will come. And for that, negativity has to be wiped out. And that can be wiped out only if there are some natural disasters. As a result, there will be also a change in the geography, which means some of the parts of the world will go completely under the sea, get submerged. On the other hand, some new islands could emerge. And the major part of the destruction will take place within a few hours, which maybe something like a meteorite hitting or something, whatever. So major part of the destruction will take place within a few hours. So some hints will be there of devastation before that, but much of the destruction will take place within a few hours, and the scale will be such that only 25% will survive, which is only 25% of the human race is likely to survive. And this survival will not be random. Those who are better human beings, or you can say those who are at a higher level of consciousness, are the ones who will be spared. So there'll be a selective destruction. And there are some graphic details which I need not go into, how the good ones will be saved. It's almost like, the divine itself sending some sort of rescue boats, which will lift these people up, and those rescue boats will land at a safe place. So that is the type of details that this book goes into. And then it continues that the world will become a place where humans live in harmony as true instruments of God. And what is a true instrument of God? A true instrument lives selflessly for the greater good with complete faith in God. So, very simply put, but then these are the essentials of a person with a high level of consciousness. One lives selflessly, that is not for himself, but feeling one with others and therefore living for everyone. And if he lives has that universal love, what he does is for the greater good. And second important thing is that this person has complete, unshakable faith in God. And the edition that I read was 2009, but the book has been reprinted several times since then and still available. And I think the page numbers would not be very different in the new editions. Now, that's not all, not just Bhavishya Malika Purana and the predictions in Khurshid Bhavnagari's uh, The Laws of the Spirit World. Sister B.K. Shivani, the Brahmakumari of the Raja Yoga tradition. Swami Yogeshwarananda, who uh, calls himself Swami Yo in the social media. Sadguru of the Isha Yoga Foundation, uh, founder of the Isha Yoga tradition, very popular. And Shri M, whose lineage goes back to the Deathless Baba in the Himalayas and Swami Yogananda Paramahansa and so on, belongs to that lineage. These are all living spiritual teachers. Uh, then also this one, Baba Vanga. Baba, in India has the flavor of a male, but she was a lady. She was a Bulgarian mystic who made many predictions, many of which have come true. And uh, her eyes are like that, but then in fact, she was born blind. She was born blind, still lived for more than 80 years, as you can see, 85 years. And she had predicted many things which have already come true. And this type of destruction and change in the world leading to a better world is also one of the things that she had predicted. This is a sample of the other sources where similar things have been talked about. But then those of you who think that it should be said by scientists, naturally scientists will not talk in terms of divine intervention and the change in the consciousness, but this is from the General Assembly of the United Nations in 2019. In one of the major sessions, the scientists warned that only 11 years are left to prevent irreversible damage from climate change. That was said 5 years ago, which means out of those 11 years, 5 years are already gone. So we just have about 6 years more, 5 to 6 years more. Now, and then we are the last generation that can prevent irreparable damage to our planet, because naturally, if only 11 years are left, then if we don't do nothing, we'll be extinct. And therefore, we are the last generation that can prevent it. But then the hope, they say, comes from inspiration, comes from thousands of students worldwide demanding tangible action. Now, this is a sign of those sun eyed children of a marvelous dawn who are already there and are making all efforts that they can to change things and are demanding tangible action, sometimes at in the risk of their careers, at the risk of being threatened for protesting too much, and so on and so forth, but still they are doing it. Now, so if I try to enumerate the fears masks and the consequences of it, uh, which all these different sources have talked about, is firstly some geomagnetic changes, climate change, which may be partly due to these geomagnetic changes, partly because of the environmental depletion, which we can all see is leading to a lot of climate change all over the world. Natural disasters have also increased in the last a few years, and they are going to increase further. That is one of predictions of these from these sources. Then the change in the geography, that is the world itself having a new map, some areas getting submerged and some new islands emerging. Then plenty of armed conflicts, wars, including World War III. And pandemics, not only due to bacteria and viruses, but cancer could also become a pandemic phenomenon. To some extent, signs are again there. Cancer is becoming far more common than it used to be. And a drastic reduction in the population. That is another thing which many of these sources are saying. But there is hope because the children today are different. Children being born at a different level of consciousness. They're asking deep existential questions at a very young age. When it comes to choice of a career, they are not just looking at a career which will help them make a living. They are also trying to find a career through which they can make a difference to the world. And finally, what all these predictions are saying is that the hope is because of these children and the destruction, which will lead to a cleansing of the world population, and that will end the present era of evil. In terms of our tradition, Hindu tradition, it will mean the end of the kaliyug or the age of evil, and will bring in the next age, which is the satyug, that is the age of truth, the age of love. So these fierce masks are drastic divine interventions. And one way to rationalize them would be that if the old order has to give place to new, deconstruction of the old order is necessary before reconstruction. Like if the child has a set of uh, pieces or for a puzzle, and the child has made something, the child may love what the child has made, but if it has to make something new, it first has to destroy what the child has already made. So deconstruction is a necessity before reconstruction can happen. And then we can take the stand that we can do nothing even if we want to. Perhaps we would not even want to because we all want a better world. And since on the whole it's going to be for a better world, we need not even do anything, even if we can. Certainly, we can't even do the type of events that are being talked about. So it's the end of an era. And these are all expressions of divine grace for a new era because it's out of the grace of the divine, out of the love of the divine for all of us, for its creation, that a new and better era is being ushered in. But then all this is something which is happening through a mechanism which is completely beyond my control, to which I can hardly make any contribution. Then why need I do anything at all? And that was the reason why I chose this particular topic, that while grace is a reality, and through all these predictions of devastation and destruction also, it is easy to see the touch of divine grace, but all the same, effort is necessary, and why that is necessary and what type of effort should be there. That's what we shall see now. But then before that, we may ask, how can God do that? God loves us. God is so kind. He's so loving. How can God do that? We find answers to that in the Gita in chapter 11, where Sri Krishna gives Arjun the divine eyes, Divya Chakshu, so that now Arjun can see the divine in its true form. Now Arjun can have experiential knowledge of the divine. But then what type of experience does he get? Two types of experiences. As you can see behind this in faint images of fire and multiple heads. Now that is the fierce form of the divine. Arjun gets scared and tells Sri Krishna, please show me your benign form. Then he shows this benign form, which is in the front in this picture. So the divine has both these aspects. a loving form and a fierce form, and both are uh, forms of the divine, and both have a purpose. The divine is quite dispassionate about uh, manifesting through one or the other, and whatever is appropriate through that, the divine does that, apparently. So the divine has both these aspects. And along the same lines, Sri Aurobindo says in the Essays on the Gita, and in this chapter, The Vision of the World Spirit, Time the Destroyer. The creator also destroys so that he may new create. That is, he may create something new, for that destruction is necessary. And therefore, the creator itself destroys what it has created. While Brahma is the divine, that is the creator, Rudra and Kali are also the divine. Rudra is Shiva and Kali. We are familiar with the ferocious form of Kali with the skulls around her neck. So while Brahma is the divine, Rudra and Kali are also the divine. So this is also an expression of divine grace. That's why may do it to us. All of us want a better world, and we find the task beyond us. And for God, nothing is difficult, and therefore, divine itself will do it for us, give us a better world. That is exactly what grace is. That is to give us much more than we deserve, much more than is commensurate with the effort that we put in. But then we can't depend entirely on grace, because grace has to be earned by effort. So the effort should still continue. What type of effort? When these disasters strike, will depend upon how we respond to the disasters. Do we see them as an expression of divine grace? And therefore, do we respond to these disasters with gratitude? Gratitude to the divine for showering this grace on us? Then we may have around us many who have been affected severely by these disasters. How much compassion we have for them, how much sense of oneness we feel for them, and how we express our love for our fellow beings who may be affected by these disasters. It could be us, it could be somebody else, but then some would be affected more than the others. So those who are affected less, what do they do to express their love for those who have been affected more? Because just having a sentimental compassion and love is not enough. How do we express it? That will be important. Here are some of the sort of speculations about what type of effort we can put in. Uh, as Gandhiji said, it's a beautiful quote. Whatever you do will be insignificant, but it is very important that you do it. Whatever you do will be insignificant. No matter what you do in the world will be insignificant. If you look at anything that anyone has done, even the greatest of men, if they had not done it, would it really have made much difference to the world? Hardly any. I've written so many books. If I had not written them, would it have made any difference to the world? If I die tomorrow without writing any more, will it make any difference to the world? If I write 5 more books before I die, will those 5 books make any difference to the world? Nothing will make any difference to the world. Yet why I'm doing it, we'll come to in a moment, or why anybody does it. But then this first part of this sentence is important. Whatever you do will be insignificant. But it is very important that you do it. He's not saying, but you do it anyway. That's not what Gandhiji is saying. He's saying, but it is very important that you do it. Why is it very important? Because it may not make any difference to the world. But that is my expression of love for my fellow beings. How can I express it? By doing what I can do well, what I can do best. And all what I need is a complementary situation where I can give something that I have to those who need it. Once I find that complementary situation, and if one is conscious of it, it's always easy to find that type of complementary situation. I just do it because one result of it is guaranteed. The world will not change. The work that I do will be insignificant, even to those for whom I am doing it, even for those whom I feel I am giving something. Even for them, it may not matter much. It may not uh, be very important, even for them. Leave aside on the larger scale, of course, it will be totally insignificant. But one result is guaranteed 100%. It leads to my own spiritual growth. It fulfills the purpose of my life. That is why I get a sense of fulfillment. And there's nothing greater than that fulfillment. It goes even beyond contentment. One gets the feeling fulfillment means I need nothing because I have everything. So, what can be better than having that feeling of not wanting anything because I have everything. And that is because the purpose of life is being fulfilled. Purpose of my existence is being fulfilled through that. And what are the consequences of that? Not only I'm happy, therefore, in this world, I can lead a life which is full of love and peace in this world. But whatever we know about these spiritual phenomena, after the person dies, the person is also likely to find an abode in one of the better worlds, one of the other worlds which are better. Because there are realms, uh, hell, hell and heaven, and a lot in between. So one is likely to land in one of the better worlds if we have lived a life like that. And then there is a consequence also in the next life. When the soul gets embodied again and returns to this world, the soul is likely to be embodied under circumstances which are more favorable for further spiritual growth. As the Gita has said, that no effort on the path of yoga or spirituality is ever a waste. A person who cannot finish it in this life will be born in the next life with that type of tendencies. The person will already arrive with the type of tendencies which will take the person in that direction and uh, motivate the person to move in that direction. And therefore, he's more likely to embark on the journey at a relatively early age and finish the journey maybe in the next life. So it can go on for life after life. So the consequences of doing something good, doing something which is an expression of love, doing something through which I'm giving what I have to those who need it, will make no difference to those for whom I'm doing it. It will make no difference whatsoever to the world. And still, it is very important that I do it because the result, which is for me, is guaranteed 100%. I'll grow spiritually through it. I'll fulfill the purpose of my life. I'm likely to be at a better place after death, and I'm likely to get better circumstances in the next life. So the consequences are in this life, after this life, and in the next life. What can be better than that? So that is why it is very important that you do it. What a beautiful sentence, short and brief, short sentence, but it's a wonderful sentence. Whatever you do will be insignificant, but it is very important that you do it. So we are in for exciting times ahead because uh, the normal world, as it has existed for several thousand years now, everybody has experienced and somehow negotiated his journey through it. But what is now going to happen in the next few years, apparently, very close, we are very close to those times when there'll be major changes. Major changes will change the world, and we may not be able to contribute much to it, but at least we can participate in it, we can witness it. Now, I'll end with a few quotations from Sri Aurobindo and the mother. The Here's what the mother says in a prayer dated 9th August 1914. She came to Pondicherry for the first time, or India for the first time, on the 29th of March 1914. So this is just a few months after that. Those were the days when she was writing lots of these prayers based on her own reflections. And therefore, this collection of prayers and meditations is an extremely uplifting uh, collection of prayers. And in the prayer dated 9th August 1914, she says, "The splendor of thy supreme light must spring forth from all the darkness that has swept down upon the earth." Again, a hint that the splendor, the brightness, the glamour, and the splendor and the uh, shine of thy supreme light, that is, this light of the divine, must spring forth. It is bound to once again appear on earth. But then what will be the root? From all the darkness that has swept down upon the earth. The root will be through darkness that had swept the earth in 1914. And after that, it has not really become any less. But then these major events can take 100 years or so. Sri Aurobindo said in Savitri also, when the divine voice is talking to uh, Savitri, that I'll pursue you through the century. Now, means that 100 year at least gap was visualized there also. That century, gives that hint. And again, the mother 100 years ago, the darkness that has swept down upon earth. Through that will emerge the supreme light of the divine. It must happen. This is how the mother would have looked uh, around 1914, because she had just returned. Sort of, she it was a little before she stayed in Japan. This is her dress in Japan, and she was in Japan around 3 or 4 years from 1916 to 1919. We don't have too many pictures available of the 1914 period, but this is how she would have looked when she was writing all these prayers and meditations. And this is from Savitri. When all thy, again, page 69, towards the end of Savitri, the divine voice speaking to Savitri about her work and how it will happen through fierce masks. When all thy work in human time is done, awakened. So, what will be the end result of all the work that you will do? That is what Savitri will do in the world as an instrument of the divine. When all thy work in human time is done, awakened from the mortal's ignorance, men shall be lit with the eternal's ray. The human beings will change. Men will change. Men and women. It's understood. Huh? Shall be lit with the eternal's ray. Uh, they will have that benefit of the light, which will take away the ignorance. Benefit of the light coming from the ray of the eternal, the divine. Light, is synonymous with knowledge, or sort of as symbolized as knowledge. So it is that light of knowledge that takes away ignorance, and much of human evil, or in fact, all of human evil is basically because of ignorance. Ignorance of the deeper truths of existence, so that we look at only the surface and take it as the entire reality. That is the root cause of all evil. That is the root cause of the ego, which is behind all the evil. Me first, not realizing the oneness because we don't see that oneness. We don't see that oneness because we live in a darkness, and that darkness can be removed by the eternal's ray. And the glory of my son lift in their thoughts. So, what type of a change will be there is a come about as a result of this being lit by the eternal's ray? The glory of my here is the divine is speaking. My sun lift, that is the upliftment that can be provided by a bright light like the sun, that will lift up their thoughts. In that Vedic Gayatri, Dhyo yo nah prachodayat. That is, my thoughts, that's a prayer, that let my thoughts be at their best. How can the thoughts be at their best? My Through that sun lift. And feel in their hearts the sweetness. As a result of this, what will happen? And feel in their hearts the sweetness of my love, and in their acts my power's miraculous drive. So the thoughts will be uplifted. The hearts, that is the emotional part of the being, will be full of the sweetness of divine love, which is universal, unconditional, and doesn't expect anything in return. And in their acts, that is, in what they do, in their action, my power's miraculous drive. So you can see all parts of the being will be affected. The thoughts, or the mental part of the being, or the intellect, the hearts, that is the emotional part of the being, or the vital, that will be affected, and the acts, that is the actions that we undertake with the body, the physical, they'll all be affected. So physical, vital, and mental. Or in simpler terms, in the head, the heart, and the hands. The head with the best of thoughts, the heart full of the best of emotions, and the hands doing the best. And in that state, my will, the divine is saying, my will shall be the meaning of their days. It is doing my will, what I want them to do, that will give meaning to their days. They'll feel that the day has been well spent only if they have done what the divine wanted them to do. Which means, you know, what in the Gita, Sri Krishna says, Man mana bhava, that is, be my minded. If the person becomes divine minded, has the same type of mind as the divine, does whatever the divine expects him to do, then the person's will is the same as the divine will. It coincides with the divine will. Then, one does not even need to subordinate one's personal will to the divine will. That is for ordinary mortals like us living on the earth today, that we have a will which seems to be in conflict with the divine will. And then, if we are on the spiritual path, we feel we should subordinate our personal will to the divine will. But if the two coincide, if the person has become Manmanabhava, the person has the same type of mind as the divine, then the two wills will coincide automatically. No such effort is required. The person cannot do otherwise. The person has become the divine, has become one with the divine. My will shall be the meaning of their days. And therefore, the human beings will be living for me, living for the divine, by me, supported by the divine, in me, living in the divine. They shall live. Living for me, by me, in me, they shall live. So that will be the result of the work that Savitri would do on earth. That is what the divine is telling her. But then all this will happen. The root to it lies through the fierce masks. So, Book 11, which comes almost towards the end of Savitri. In my edition, in which it is on 699, Savitri ends on page 724. So just about 25 pages after that is the end of Savitri. So thank you all for listening. And I didn't really keep track of time, but I suppose I'm not taking too much extra.
Thank you so much, sir, for this thought-provoking presentation. We are really grateful for learning from your wisdom and profound insights. Let's open the session to the participants. Participants, if anyone has a question or if you have got anything to share, please, you can drop your messages in the chat box or unmute yourself and speak up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. It was a okay. Thank you, sir. It was a very thought-provoking topic, and many things were quite astounding that these predictions have been made, for the human existence. Interestingly, I am in the pursuit. I am reading this book currently, The Laws of the Spirit World, and the way this book has been structured, it has not been structured by, it's actually been written by someone else, from the it's flowing actually, and it's a very beautiful book. So thank you for this lecture. It was wonderful.
Thank you. It was not only a thought-provoking session, it was also a rather provocative session and can be controversial, because one tendency is that when you come across these predictions, you try to hush them up. Let's not talk about these things. So that is one
Yes.
tendency. But then that is not what is helpful. Even if I don't talk about it, many people are likely to discover it. But then what is important is to realize that just because these things might happen, firstly, they are an expression of divine grace. And secondly, still our efforts should continue,
Yeah.
which is very important for young people. And that is our focus in the Yes Project.
Yes, and the way you emphasized on that, the one quote by Mahatma Gandhi, that
And yes.
that our action might be insignificant,
Mhm.
but that is so important, and so it is not insignificant that ways for a individual's growth.
Yes, that quote is extremely educative, very
Extremely.
simple, very brief, and yet it says so much.
So much
And who's saying it? The person who himself put in so much effort in the world and still says whatever anybody does is will be always
insignificant.
insignificant.
True. Thank you, sir.
Uh, Aishwarya, I think I saw you were trying to speak something earlier. Yeah, you were on mute. Please, please.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, I was pretty much, yeah, what Ritu spoke. I was sharing the same thoughts that it was very interesting and insightful personally also. And And the lines of Savitri, I think, like from the Book of the Everlasting Day, are like so precious to me personally, because somehow I don't understand, and this is what I wanted to ask also. Although those lines are said to Savitri by the Supreme, or the I don't know the voice, but when mother reads these lines of Savitri and there's a recording of hers, it feels like she is speaking to us, or is she? Like, it's my question which I wanted to ask, or like I find them very nourishing always to listen to them.
Yes, certainly. I mean, she is speaking to all of us, because just as Ashwapati was nothing other than Sri Aurobindo, Savitri was none other than the mother herself. Mother was that divine agent that uh, who had been sent by the divine. The way, Ashwapati is promised, one shall descend and will accomplish what you want. So the mother was that instrument, and therefore when she's reading it, she's essentially reading what she is in the world for, and what she was doing, and she wanted all of us to know that this is what she is here for, and what the route through that will be.
But if she's reading it to herself, like she's the divine, and then she's saying to herself that I shall make thee my instrument, or something of that sort. And when she is reading it, I would assume that she's saying that to me, like something that sort. And it's kind of fantasizing, is something I would say, but it's very.
Well, that's the paradox that always happens when the
Yeah,
divine is in human form. The divine
yeah.
prays to the divine speaks to the divine. Say, if Rama loses Sita, he behaves as if he doesn't know where Sita is. And then he may pray to the divine, please help me find Sita. Now it's the divine who knows everything who's praying to the divine. That happens in such situations.
Thank you. Thank you for showing those lines and this talk. But still, it's, yeah, something unbelievable to think of, that, yeah, we would have to go through such a fiercest time in the future. Yeah, but I hope we. Do you suggest, like, how can we prepare ourselves, or like anything in? I mean, that would be too broad or too superficial, but still, like, I just wanted to ask: is
We
it
keep
just?
doing our bit before that type of devastation strikes, and we keep doing our bit if we survive that devastation. Basically, it comes to that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this talk.
So,
Tarun Gupta has raised the hand. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Am I audible?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the insight. It is always good to hear from you. Sir, I have a quick question, a bit related to the point you mentioned regarding the yoga. I think the Bhavishya Malika Purana, where it was written by 2032, the satyug is going to start. I have read a book, The Holy Science by Yukteswar Giriji, I think, who is the spiritual guru of Yoga and Paramhansa. And
The
and
one which happens
yeah,
every
he had mentioned the
on
cycle to
different
change
topics.
in a way,
Just what
the cycle to change in a way that after the Kali Yuga, it would be Dwapar Yuga then. So it is Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar, Kaliyug, and then Kaliyug, and then Treta, Dwapar, and so on. So, and I think Sadhguru also has spoken on the similar line, that, and I think it also mentioned that Dwapar, in fact, has started or is about to start, or maybe I think we are living in a Dwapar. So, how do you take those things? It's going to start after Kali Yuga is Satyug, or is it going to be Dwapar, as it would be a bit in line with the changes? Means Kaliyug to Dwapar is a big change. Sorry, Kaliyug to Satyug is a big change in the human psychology, whereas Kaliyug to Dwapar is a bit more logical change. Yeah, that's my question.
I would look at these discrepancies in the terminology used by the different masters for the era that will come after the present Kaliyug by going to the essence. The essence is that the era that will follow will be much better than the present. Even if it is Dwapar, so what? Sri Krishna was in Dwapar Yug. That was much better than our age. So it's a change for the better. That's the way I would look at it. It's a major change for the better. Even it is from Kali Yuga to Dwapar Yuga. Call it by whatever name, call it Dwapar Yuga or Satyug, but it will be a major change
Better
for
than,
the
yes.
That is what. That's what matters.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
If I can add something to it, I think in yoga and its objects, Aurobindo talks about it in the beginning of how these cycles evolve. I'm sorry.
Yes, all spiritual masters have visualized that there is a cyclic process. As the terminology used, the duration they have talked about, all these things could be different. But the fact that there is a cyclic process in the world that they've all talked about, that is common to all of them.
Thank you, sir. We have, I think, a question in the chat box. Marcelo says, deep gratitude for this wonderful session. It is said that integral yoga is futuristic in the sense that looks to the future and many times described as an adventure. What kind of adventure?
It's the adventure in the sense that it's uncharted territory. It is a path which others have not walked. And even the individual who's walking it, he's carving it for himself for the first time because his individual temperament and circumstances are different. And within that, the person is carving a path. So, in general, the yoga itself, by having a goal which is different from the traditional yogas, is an adventure because it's uncharted territory. And for each individual seeker, it is further an adventure because the person is carving out his or her own path.
Thank you,
Adventure
sir.
is simply about doing something new, isn't it? New, you don't know what lies ahead, and yet you have the courage to approach it. That is what adventure is. And that's what happens in this yoga.
Thank you, sir. I would like to inform all the participants that the recording of today's session and all the Yes Talks are published on the YouTube channel Yes Spirituality, which hosts extensive content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like self-help, psychology, and wellness. And please do join us on the social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook, by the same name, Yes Spirituality. Thank you once again, Dr. Bijlani, sir, for sparing your valuable time for all of us and sharing all your wisdom with us. Thank you, sir. And of course, we thank the participants as well for being with us today. We'll close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.